Muyanja, we can start.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Muyanja Likumba. I am the Data and AI Associate. Just wanted to welcome you to the AI Survey Report webinar. So just a bit of a background on what the State of AI report is. Last year, Bongo Hive, in conjunction with Zikta and Ubuntu, carried out a survey with different partners, individuals, and organizations on how they use AI, the perception of AI within the country, and different barriers. And after having sent out the survey for a month or more, we had a lot of responses, and we were able to analyze that data, and now we're presenting that report to everybody and all the stakeholders involved. So our events for the day, for this webinar, is going to start with a presentation from our data and AI team lead, Mapalo, who will give you the key insights on what was unveiled in our survey and our report, the little nuggets and gold bits within our survey. And after that, we're going to have an engaging panel discussion with our three panelists, Mapalo, Bernard, and Pendo, who are going to introduce themselves in details when the time comes, which will be facilitated by our Executive Director, Mr. Luponga. And after that, we're going to have an engaging Q&A with our individuals so that you can give us our feedback, get some clarification on the different things, anything that caught your fancy, just a chance to engage and network with us, just to get better insights on what the State of AI report gave us. And then we're going to conclude our webinar, and that will be all for today. So for now, I'm going to hand over to the presentation. Apollo.
Thank you so much, Muyanja, and greetings to everyone. We're going to be jumping into a new segment around understanding the insights from the survey and the report that's essentially being launched today. And I'm really excited that we're taking this journey, not just as the people, as the different teams that were able to come together, but as a nation in general. I feel this is going to be very helpful to just provide insights. And really the insights that I'll be sharing in just a moment, the goal is that we can be able to see the journey of where the survey started, who was involved, and all the way to understanding what value you gain from downloading this survey today and trying to ensure that those insights are helpful for you, your business, your personal decisions. So I'm going to start my presentation. So these are insights on the State of AI in Zambia survey, and these are the insights and way forward. And this particular report that you're getting today, I'm just going to have to, this particular report that, apologies for that. Just allow me to reshare my screen. Let me know if it's in full, just let me know if you can see it in full screen mode. I'm just going to just try to reshare that again. Right, got it. Apologies. I just need to share my screen again, sorry. All right, let me know if you can see it correctly. I'll have to believe that you can. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Yanja, can you just quickly confirm for me?
Yes, we can see your screen, Mapalo.
Okay, I'll pick it up just from here. All right, that being said, let me just move forward with the report. So the report has highlights, key findings from 2024 survey on the current state of artificial intelligence in Zambia, providing a roadmap for the nation's AI-driven future. So a little bit of a background on where we're coming with regards to the AI survey. Number one is that we set out to be able to understand AI adoption in Zambia, and the survey aimed to provide a comprehensive snapshot of AI awareness, usage, and barriers to adoption in Zambia. We also targeted that this should be a report that will help with informing policy so that the findings can guide policymakers in developing strategies to harness the benefits of AI and address challenges. Thirdly, driving innovation was at the core of our focus, and we hope that the insights from the survey would be able to help stakeholders and unlock AI potential for growth. So with these particular three objectives in mind, we set out to carry out this survey, and this is why we believe this was important. We believe this was important because AI at the moment has great potential, especially when adopted. And we look at what we can gain from AI, we're able to understand that AI potentially helps with increased productivity. Studies have shown that AI-powered automation and decision support can enhance worker productivity and free up time for strategic tasks. And hence why this is very important for us to be able to get to understand how we can be able to benefit from this new technology that has essentially gained a life of its own in this new era. AI is also projected to create new jobs, and that's estimated to be 97 million new jobs. And the development and deployment of AI systems will generate those particular significant jobs of high-skilled jobs. So we're seeing a shift in the job market where the type of jobs that AI will be creating are high-skilled jobs. And so we're going to see from our particular insights why it's relevant for us to understand the current state of AI in Zambia. Last but not the least, AI is projected to grow economies. And in particular, there's an estimation by a study done by McKinsey that by the year 2030, the economic growth that will be attributed to AI is about 13 trillion in global economic value. And this widespread AI adoption is projected to contribute trillions to the economy. So this presents an immense opportunity, and one that as a nation, we are eager to participate in. So for the survey, we were able to receive 763 responses to our survey call, and the public was generous to be able to just get to provide valuable feedback. And out of that 763 respondents that we got, 10% of those were organizations, and that's about 74 organizations participated in a survey, and those were across sectors from IT to academia all the way to health, and the 52% represented other industries, including banking and finance across the board. We also had 90% of respondents as individuals. That totaled about 685 of responses. We had a split divide between the gender balance, where 79% were male and 21% of our respondents were female. When we look at the opportunities that we've been able to spot through the insights from the survey, one of the things that stood out to us immediately was the opportunity where there is a high AI awareness. It's no stranger to most people that AI is here to stay. It's in the news, it's on social media, it's part of conversations. So awareness by all means wasn't a shock for us to find out that 86.7% of our respondents were aware of AI. And we could see that apart from them being aware, about close to 300 of our respondents say they actually utilize or have been able to hear about AI multiple times a day. Others hear about it several times a week, and some of them rarely hear about it. So we can see that there's that opportunity that can be leveraged in the fact that AI is going to be a conversation that you will not need to explain to people as much because there's a growing interest and a growing awareness. The next opportunity we see from our report is that there's a significant economic and organizational impact that AI poses, with 95.9% of our respondents believing AI has an impact, or will have an impact on them. So organizations recognize this, significant impact that AI has potential to bring. And we saw from industries across marketing and sales, and organizations believing that it would impact marketing and sales greatly. Organizations also believe that it has strong potential to impact their research and development progress and productivity across to product development, enhancing customer service, operations and logistics, finance and accounting, and human resources. And that was potentially what our organization respondents believe, that human resources at that particular point in time is not one of those sectors that will be affected initially, but there's true potential for it to be impacted by AI. The third opportunity that was recognized by organizations was the opportunity of productivity gains, with productivity being mentioned by the majority of our respondents. We see other respondents also talking about productivity and efficiency gain potential that AI could bring. So organizations essentially using AI reported this increased productivity for them already, and demonstrating its potential to streamline operations and drive efficiency. The other opportunity that was observed, we move on to challenges now. Some challenges that you will see in the report that was observed was the challenge of low AI adoption. So this is a huge contrast from the high awareness, because despite there being a high awareness, we see that out of 74 organizations, 30 of them are still in early stage adoption, 18 hadn't adopted it, 17 had moderate adoption, and 12 had extensive adoption. And so we see that there is a strong belief in the impact it can pose, yet there is still a low adoption for most organizations out there. So the majority will need to embrace AI technology and integrate it fully in their business processes if we are to ensure that we maximize on the potential that AI poses. Another challenge that was observed when we did our analysis of the insights was that there's limited local AI development. So this was a stark contrast between adoption or development of AI tools globally across the board and AI local development. So Zambia currently is heavily dependent on foreign developed solutions like ChatGPT, Meta AI, Gemini, and to mention a few. So this indicates a gap in the homegrown innovation. And all stakeholders on this particular code should be thinking at how we can potentially begin to bridge this homegrown gap of being able to innovate our own AI solutions. Another challenge that stood out was the structural barriers that we're seeing. So Zambia faces at the moment several structural barriers that hinder the widespread adoption of AI technology. And this included, one, a lack of skilled AI talent, limited access to data and computing resources, and an underdeveloped digital infrastructure. You can see from our graph here, our bar chart, implementation cost was listed as a stark barrier to adoption, followed by skilled talent as being one of those challenges that organizations identified as being a barrier to them adopting AI within their organization. The quality of data was a stark third, and we had security and privacy concerns as well as regulatory compliance, ethical considerations, and resistance to change. So what is the way forward? Now that we've been able to look at the potential of AI's benefit to job creation, to economic growth, we've been able to look at the opportunities some of the opportunities that the report that you'll be downloading today has been able to highlight. And those are just a few that have been mentioned, but the extensive report does cover a lot of opportunities that were unveiled. So then we've also been able to understand the challenges that we are facing as a country, and challenges that organizations are facing and individuals are facing towards AI adoption, AI implementation. So what then are some of the things we should be thinking about a way forward as a nation, as organizations, as individuals. So we identified 5 to share, and there are more in the report. And one of those is that there's an opportunity here for investment in AI research and innovation. And investing in AI and research will fuel groundbreaking innovations and create tailored solutions for our community. We also believe that the way forward from here is to enhance AI education programs. We saw that there's a challenge when it comes to skilled AI workforce, and hence there's a need to be able to consider revising our AI education approach to strengthen AI education from primary to university levels to build strong pipeline of AI talent. We also believe the way forward is to enhance digital infrastructure. And this is very important to invest in high-speed internet. We need to see an increase in investment in that area, cloud computing as a nation, and data centers to build the infrastructure for seamless AI deployment and adoption. With such investments and enhancements in digital infrastructure, one would hope that homegrown solutions would be on the rise. Number 4, we believe that the way forward is for more public and private partnerships and to leverage the diverse expertise that exists in these particular sectors and resources to accelerate AI adoption and development. Last but not the least, we believe that there must be inclusive AI policies developed by policymakers to develop policies to enable responsible AI innovation and address ethical concerns. So in conclusion, what then do we know about the landscape in Zambia? Number 1, opportunities are in abundance. There are critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and finance that present immense potential for AI-driven innovation and transformation in Zambia. There's also the need for unlocking that potential to invest in AI education and skills development, develop robust digital infrastructure, implement comprehensive regulatory frameworks for ethical and sustainable growth. With strategic focus and collaboration, AI can be a powerful driver of sustainable development, fostering economic growth and innovation in Zambia. This brings our presentation to an end. I hope this has been insightful. I hand over to the facilitator to guide us to the next session.
Thank you so much, Mapalo. That was jam-packed. So for our next session is going to be a panel discussion by Mapalo, Bernard, and Pendo, which will be facilitated by our Executive Director, Mr. Lukonga. So from here, you can take over.
Thanks, Muyanje, Mapalo. I'm really excited about where we have gotten so far. The conversation around the AI report itself and the survey started early last year when most of us were having access to ChatGPT. We started asking ourselves questions around what the potential was, whether we were ready as a country, and what we could do to address some of the gaps and opportunities. So a quick conversation with Bernard and Pendo got the 3 organizations to put their resources together to do something like this. It's been quite a journey, but I'm so glad that we get them on the panel as well, together with Mapalo, to be able to get into the report a little deeper. So what I will do now is just quickly let the panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Mapalo, if you can just introduce yourself, what you do at Bongo Hive, and then we'll move on to Bernard and Pendo.
Thank you so much. My name is Mapalo Lukashi, and I am the Data and Artificial Intelligence Team Lead at Bongo Hive. And my work is essentially around data and AI. It's in the definition. And I'm happy to be on this panel to discuss this important topic.
Hello and good evening. Really grateful for the opportunity to join this important discussion. My name is Bernard Banda. I'm Director Economic Regulation and Consumer Affairs at ZICTA. I know this is online, so we might be having some people that are perhaps not from Zambia, but ZICTA is the ICT regulator. We obviously oversee the operations of and the growth of the ICT sector, and we have obviously various functions ranging from managing competition, consumer protection, and even just the management of some of the scarce resources associated with our sector. Now, maybe closely related to this particular work, part of my functions at ZICTA involve overseeing some of the work around research and development, but also supporting innovation. So this, I think, particular topic around AI is quite important for us here at ZICTA, because it not only affects our regulatory mandate in terms of what we focus on, but we also take keen interest in terms of trying to support issues around innovation and just being ahead of the developments and seeing how our regulatory frameworks can certainly respond to these new developments. So I was particularly happy to participate in this work, and I'm happy to continue with the conversations around AI development. Particularly because I think some of the key insights from this also provide evidence around how we can better regulate the sector. So really grateful, I think, for the opportunity, and happy to share this panel, I think, with the two colleagues. Thank you, Konga.
Thank you, and I will apologize in advance. I'm having a challenge with my video, and I hope that will be resolved during the course of the webinar. My name is Pendo Manjale. I am one of the co-founders of Ubuntu AI Community, which is a grassroots community built or created by the community to enable AI in Zambia. It's a community-driven initiative, and our mission is simple yet ambitious, which is advancing AI in Zambia through collaboration, learning, and sharing information. So we have been in existence since 2018 under the Zambia AI community name, and we recently rebranded to Ubuntu a year or 2 years ago to embrace the aspect of Ubuntu, which is we are because you are. So we are here to help one another grow in the AI space. And this particular survey was important for us because we're looking at where can we measure our progress? Where are we at Zambia in terms of AI? And we're looking forward to having this conversation. So thank you, Lukonga, and the rest of the panelists for this opportunity.
Thank you all for joining. So we'll get straight into the some of the questions. Mapalo, at the end of your presentation, you had some recommendations. It's very clear that a lot more people are aware of foreign AI tools, so ChatGPT, Gemini, and such. But if you ask most people, they'll probably not be able to mention any local AI solutions. So from the work that you are doing, that we are doing at Bongo Hive, and your perspective on innovators, what needs to happen to foster more homegrown AI solutions, and also just increase the awareness and adoption of these local solutions?
Thank you so much, Lukonga, for that question. The work that we're doing at Bongo Hive has been helpful in being able to understand the Zambian AI landscape. And one of the things that I believe should be being done to be able to increase, adoption of homegrown solution is one, that investment in AI research and innovation. One of the things that we need to do as a country, do across industries, academia, and as a hub is to be able to see increased investment. And that investment will help fuel that groundbreaking innovation, right? So we need to be deliberate around where we're placing our resources, whether it's human resource, financial resource, how we are being able to commit people to be able to think and brainstorm the particular solutions that are needed. We conduct a lot of incubator sessions at Bongo Hive and accelerators, and with increased investment, even with partnership with stakeholders, we would love to believe that there will be more homegrown targeted solutions to solve local problems. Because the challenge of having a majority of foreign tools being utilized as opposed to local solutions is that solutions that are not really tailored for you can only go a certain way, can only go a certain distance, right? And for us as a nation to be able to fully maximize the potential of AI, we cannot be dependent on foreign solutions, because then we will only be maybe 10 in 20% of the potential 80% of what we could be gaining. Hence, an increase in investment from the ecosystem across the board will definitely enhance that growth. And maybe my second point to this effect is we need to enhance those AI education programs, right? We need to be able to see academia revise some curriculums to be able to ensure that the strength of AI knowledge is happening from primary all the way to university level. Intentionally being able to make those decisions will be helpful. Likewise, being able to ensure that there is proper coordination to ensure that for people who are already in workplaces, professionals, they are being supported by entrepreneurship support organizations like Bongo Hive and the work that we do to be able to help them at their work adopt AI, right? And we need to see those deliberate educational programs rolled out, and we need to also hopefully see an adoption by the public to adopt these educational programs, because that's when we'll be able to scale the challenges of homegrown solutions being a very low percentage in comparison to the numerous growing foreign solutions. And I believe that's my position, and I believe Bongo has position on what we should be doing to have that contrast begin to change in our favor. Thank you.
Thanks, Mapalo. Pendo, you just came back from the global summit, AI summit on Africa. So I'm sure there's a lot that you can share based on your experience there with many stakeholders. Gender imbalance is one of the from the findings. We noticed that 79% of males participated in the survey. Obviously, that's a significant gender imbalance. We are interested in how organizations like Ubuntu AI are bridging this gap, and not just for women, also just generally for other for males as well, or young and old people. How is Ubuntu AI trying to bridge this significant gap?
Yeah, thanks, Lukonga, for that question. And post the survey, looking at the number in terms of gender balance, I think the number was underwhelming, especially looking at women 80-20, 79 to 19. As we have noticed in the previous technological eras, we had a similar trend, and it was our outcome wasn't pleasing. So I believe that diversity is not just important, it's very essential and important. So if we look at it from the previous technological advancements, women were significantly underrepresented, and we did see the consequences of that imbalance. If we look at the leadership in the tech space, it's highly male dominated, and that also now trickles down to the aspect of the gender pay gap. So the gender pay gap comes from having more the gender imbalance at the top compared to the bottom. So now that we're in this era of AI, I think this is a very pivotal moment, and the consequences of women not actively shaping this technology is likely to be far more severe compared to the previous technologies. If women are not included in this development of both policies and also AI, we are likely to see the biases being even more exacerbated and being perpetuated. You've seen how AI, ethical concerns that we're already seeing even in its infancy and early stages. And this technology is developing so fast. So from our community perspective, it's very important for us to drive that inclusion agenda. And that is something that I'm particularly passionate about. And some ways that we do this is spotlighting women, the few women that we have, by telling their stories very loudly and boldly, so that others can also gain inspiration, and hopefully other younger women coming next can see that, even can have that inspiration and look up to other women to join into these tech communities and eventually become AI engineers and also policymakers. We also share opportunities consistently and also re-emphasize the value of diversity. So our community is very inclusive, and we've created a safe space for everyone to feel comfortable, contribute equally, and have their voices heard. We also partner on various initiatives like the Women in Technology Mentorship Program. One of our co-founders, Joseph Kachelilo, has been an active mentor for the last 2 years. I've also contributed to the mentorship program. And this just helps us spread and be more proactive in how we approach the aspect of inclusion and ensuring that women are aware and also and know that there's a community in case they want to have those conversations and also grow with other like individuals. So just to wrap it up, if women are not represented, as statistics show that the job market will be disrupted. We see a number of jobs being displaced while new roles being created. And these roles will be particularly AI-centered, human-centered. But if women are not actively shaping this technology, we're going to see a inequality. So instead of AI advancing equality, we're going to see it advancing inequality, which might be a challenge. So I think I urge that we have to, I think from the statistics that we've seen, I think it just shows that there's so much work that needs to be done, but also shows the level of, also holds us accountable from a leadership perspective, and also the various communities and organizations that are driving this AI agenda. So maybe to just wrap it up, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think on our side as Ubuntu AI, we're doing our part, but we also urge others to come on board.
Yeah, thank you, Pendo. You're doing amazing work. Bernard, the survey also found that almost 60% of respondents support immediate AI regulation. And so given Zicta's role, how do you view the current regulatory environment for AI in Zambia? And also in the context of the Data Protection Act, is it sufficient to address some of these concerns? And so it will be interesting to know what Zicta's perspective is on these findings.
Okay, thank you very much again, Lukonga, and I think a very relevant question. And just, I think, reflecting on that important statistic to maybe just put it in context, 3 out of 5 respondents basically were in support of regulation for AI. Now, it's an interesting finding, particularly because when you interact whether with people, with corporates, not so many people like regulation. I think the expectation is that really, whether it's markets or players, should compete openly and basically let the markets operate on their own. But I think this statistic points to an important issue, which basically I think gives rationale for regulation, which is market failure. So if players, for instance, are likely to lead to unintended benefits or unintended outcomes, so maybe the rights of one infringe on another, then it gives, I think, reason for regulation. So it's an important, I think, insight, because most of the time, I think when you look at most surveys, they call for less or light regulation as opposed to actually pointing to some demand for regulation. Now, you ask an important question in terms of what does this mean and what are our views as Zicta around this issue. Really, I think when you look at the issue of oversight or regulation of AI, not just in Zambia, but globally, I think we are really at a very early stage in terms of regulation, because yes, AI development and deployments are new, but they've been developing very, very quickly. So we obviously have seen quite a number of challenges based on our own experience as a country, but also based on just the global practices, that there are obviously certain challenges around bias, I think ethical use, transparency, accountability. I think really the presentation points to this. Now, you also touched on the data protection law. The data protection law is one of the best things that happened for our country. It addressed a key issue around data privacy, data storage, and data management. So it's a very, very good law. I think it provides a very good framework. And I think the colleagues at the Data Protection Commission are doing quite a bit. I think if you've been following the news, they've done a few things around licensing, and I think building on the framework, on the foundation of the data protection law. Now, in as much as it has its merits, we are, I think, also quick to mention that it should be seen as a foundational piece of legislation. It does well in addressing issues around data privacy, data access, management, consent, and etc. But I think these issues that we are looking at around AI development and use present some unique issues that may not necessarily be adequately addressed in the data protection legislation. So what my comment would be really is that if we really are to manage this space effectively so that we balance the interests and nurture its development so that we really maximize on the benefits and manage any risks. We may need to build on an AI-specific regulatory framework that addresses these specific issues that I think are coming out of the survey as well, around accountability, transparency, bias, ethical use of AI, among others. I think we need to complement this existing framework, not just in the ICT sector, not just on data protection, but I think recognizing the unique issues associated with AI development and use. We may need to obviously ensure that we have complementary legislation or guidelines or framework that I think adequately responds to these needs. That would be my response, Lukonga. Thank you.
Thanks. That's quite detailed. The next segment of questions focuses on opportunities and challenges in AI development. There are three key challenges that were mentioned as top challenges, actually. High implementation costs at 33%, lack of skilled talent, 29%, and issues with data quality, availability, and infrastructure, which were actually the third and fourth, both at 26% each. Pendo, which of these challenges do you believe is the most critical bottleneck, and why?
Thanks, Lukonga. That's a very tough question, I must say. But if I look at them from the order that you have mentioned, I will say infrastructure is a critical challenge. And why I say so is I believe infrastructure is a critical bottleneck in this sense. Like, even if we have the talent, without the necessary infrastructure, the talent is likely to leave for environments or ecosystems which are better equipped. And on the other hand, we also need to establish a solid infrastructure in order to attract and retain talent and also attract investors from a business perspective. So this would actually reduce the implementation costs that are being incurred as a result of having inadequate infrastructure from compute. We're also seeing it looking at it from an energy perspective, devices which are which are very expensive to import if we're looking at it from businesses importing actual computing devices in order to operate. And also the level of connection that we have in Zambia, we still have a gap. So the infrastructure side, I believe, is very important as it enables or becomes foundational to enable the rest of the ecosystem. So without it, the progress will be limited. So we might have, like I mentioned, we might have the talent, but without the infrastructure in place, the motivation is lower because you can only scale as much and it becomes expensive to scale at the same time. So there's urgent need to invest in data centers, of course, to improve our energy system. We've seen that building models, foundational models, consume so much energy, but with our current state, I think it's a challenge that we need to also really take into account. But that doesn't, of course, inhibit us from making progress. I think we need to operate within constraints, but at the same time, there's need to actively build on some of these constraints that we are seeing. And infrastructure, I believe, is one of the critical areas that needs to be resolved within the near term. So that would be my take, Lukonga.
And just a quick follow-up question, because last week, I think the week before, Strive Masiwa and Cassava AI did partner with NVIDIA to bring compute onto the continent. And I think it's important to contextualize why that is important and so that people understand the role of such infrastructure. I know you mentioned infrastructure, but I think compute is also one of the key ones. Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, if I got your question right, Lukong, I think quite what Strive has done for the continent at large, I think will really shift our progress from an AI perspective, because compute hasn't been available. So I think what they had, the partnership entails 10,000 or 3,000 GPUs within the near term, which is like 3 months from now. And then we'll see another 30,000 GPUs, if I'm not mistaken, come in for the continent. So what this means is that for the localization that is being driven, we will be able to access that compute power to build our foundational models within our African ecosystem, as opposed to currently where we have to where most developers and researchers have to access compute that's not within Africa. So what that does now is it becomes more affordable and accessible. And for African data, will probably also enhance that aspect of open data sets. So I'm very optimistic about this development in that we have sort of been lagging behind and saying we do not have compute. But looking at this development, all we have to do is now look for opportunities. How can we leverage on this, on these GPUs that are coming in? How can we now further scale some of the AI technologies that we've been building locally? So Lukonga, maybe to cut the conversation short, but to the point, is we will see more of locally developed technology from foundational models. I think Strive Masiwa mentioned that he's keenly focused on large language models, which are localized in the African perspective. I beg your pardon. So for Zambia, this means that we also now start developing our own large language models, our language corpus, because we do have that compute to build those foundational models. So interesting times ahead, and I hope we also capitalize on this opportunity from a Zambian perspective, because this will be available to us as well.
Thanks, Pendo. Zambia launched this national AI strategy not so long ago. And this report also reveals that while almost 90% of the respondents use AI tools, only about 36% of the organizations themselves have an AI strategy. So what practical steps, Mapalo, what practical steps can businesses, especially SMEs, take to move from merely using the tools to strategically integrating AI? And maybe you can even touch on the importance of the national AI strategy, because obviously when organizations have strategy, this is also affected affected, may not be the right word, but falls in line with national AI strategy as well. So if you can just respond to that question. Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Lukonga. A very, very important question to be asking, especially looking at how we are discussing AI. And we're really looking at how there's that contrast, right? 86.7 or 90, somewhere there, 6.7% using AI, but then you're looking at just 36% of organizations that are actually implementing it. And talking about the practical steps SME should be taking, and also aligning that to the national AI strategy, we need to understand the first key thing here is that for there to be tangible results, right, tangible benefits seen from AI, it has to be an intentional approach, right? So simply being able to type a text or prompt ChatGPT won't get us to tangible benefits. It won't take us to increased productivity. That's where structured AI strategy becomes very critical to getting the results we need, both at an organizational level and as a nation. So then in the very word of strategy, what that then entails is that number one, in a practical step, there must be clearly defined objectives, right, for AI use cases. Think about how you should be able to dissect your business, your organization, and be able to identify key business use cases that AI can benefit from. We looked at our insights at the beginning of this conversation, and we saw that, AI can potentially bring impact from marketing and sales to HR, to areas to do with operations on the daily, right? Accounting systems. So by SMEs being able to align with the benefits that are tangible, that is also highlighted in the national AI strategy, they are more likely to be able to identify, one, the technologies that suit with the workflows within their organization. Because we're going to be seeing a lot of AI tools being produced both locally and globally going forward. But if there's no clear intent as to what use cases my organization will be having AI supporters in, then there's going to be a challenge there when it comes to that adoption. Another practical step here is actually developing your AI strategy, right? The national AI strategy stands as a model upon which organizations can be able to craft their own stake, right? Be able to look at it and say, look, how must I comprehensively set up a strategy that aligns with my overall business objectives? That's what organizations should be asking. Organizations have objectives that they want to achieve on a yearly basis. We see this in meetings, in networking events. There are objectives of inclusion, objectives of diversity. But for you to be able to see AI improving the results, the tangibility of those results, a clear strategy begins to be something you need to have, right? For example, what are the existing workflows and how do you determine how AI adoption will be scaled over time? Because your AI strategy allows you to think through your low-hanging fruits, which are your short-term objectives being achieved, but at the same time, it also gives you a benefit of a visionary, because then an AI strategy is crafted all the way through to your long-term strategy. And as Bongo Hive, we've been helping companies restructure their visions around how they're adopting AI by helping them craft very critical AI strategies, right? Being able to know what's short-term, what's long-term. In the interest of time, I'll maybe just say two more other practical steps. Another thing is the investment in data infrastructure and analytics. There is already a statistics there of about 26% being attributed in terms of challenges to the lack of quality of data, right? And data that's being accessed. I'm a technical person leading a data team. One of the things that I've seen and being able to interact with different organizations is that as a nation, we haven't been most critical around how we've built our data quality over the years. And it's a good thing AI has come to shake us up a little bit, because then now we can begin to be intentional around the quality of our data. In computer language, we like to say, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If we do not have well-structured data collection systems, data analytical systems, we then cannot make informed decisions that are based off data that can be trusted. And so for SMEs, there now needs to be going back to the basics. Do you have a digital transformation plan in place, right? Do you have your data being collected in the right way? Having a data dictionary, having a database, a structured manner such that when we say you're querying your data, it is data that can be trusted, whether it's your sales data, your marketing efforts. There needs to be that structured analytics that ensures that SMEs are getting near success level of insights. I would love to pose an example by a particular company in the US called Target that reached a point where they were able to even tell that one of their people who were shopping was pregnant even before the person knew they were pregnant, because their data collection system was so high that by the choices one person made when picking stuff off the till, their analytics was able to predict that. And obviously it raised concerns as how they were accessing customer data, but it goes to show how if you have a structured data structure, you have quality of data, it may highly increase how you benefit with tangible benefits from your data sets, from your integration of AI into your business. I think I'll end here just to allow for more room to have more fruitful discussions, but those three things should echo on our top of our minds. One, we should have clear objectives, develop an AI strategy and be able to really work around our infrastructure in terms of our data quality. I hand over to you, Lukonga. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll wrap those two questions together for Bernard. There are definitely infrastructure limitations there, and some of the comments already are around whether in the chat, that is, some of the comments around what we are seeing coming out of China. If DeepSeek is low cost and all that, what can we also do that is along those lines? And so my question to Bernard here is, what role can the regulator, ICT regulator and government play in addressing this particular infrastructure gap to create a more conducive environment for AI deployment?
Thank you very much, Lukonga. I think really listening to both Pendo and Mapalo, I think I also got carried away because I wanted them to continue speaking because I think they were picking on very, very useful points. But really, I think the infrastructure challenge, I think, is an important one. And I think as government, as a regulator ourselves, we've been doing quite a bit to see how we encourage or support further deployment of infrastructure. And really, I think I know that we are pressed for time, but I'll try to really be concise. You will recall, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a whole list of incentives that the government placed on infrastructure related components. So they zero rated quite a number of items in terms of customs duty and VAT. These, I think, go into most of the infrastructure related needs for our country. So I think that's one of the ways in which the government and basically us as a regulator can assist in supporting these aspects of further deployment of infrastructure from the incentive perspective. The other issue also I think can point to is the issue of universal access. So there are certain areas that may not be so commercially viable or more or less commercially attractive for the private sector. So we have a regime within our country where we retain a small portion of the revenues from the industry. And those, I think, from a public finance perspective, are invested in areas that the operators would not necessarily go to because they are seen as not so commercially viable. What has been interesting is that with those investments, we have seen over time that operators have then come to say, we see an opportunity in this area now and would like to take over this infrastructure because there is a commercial case. So I think it's one of the ways, of course, that we can support this. From a regulatory perspective, I think one of the issues that obviously arises when it comes to infrastructure are issues around standards and interoperability. So you'll find that if there are limitations around, especially if we're talking about AI, there are issues around data movement and data sharing. Of course, in the context of privacy, ensuring that it's ethically done. But I think issues around facilitating interoperability so that data can easily flow are obviously key in ensuring that we not only reduce the costs and avoid duplication, but I think it can also further support issues around infrastructure development. So I think those would be some of the responses I would give, but the need, of course, for specific infrastructure like Pendo has given relating to data centers, I think is key. And obviously, we hope that there will be a commercial case with more sectors like finance, healthcare, among others, adopting more AI-related solutions. I think this also would present a commercial case even for more investments, either for greenfield or even for expansions around some of the existing infrastructure that we have. I think really that would be my response. And maybe because we're winding up, I saw there was a question in the chat around what is ZICTA's position around regulation, more or less constricting innovation. Now, of course, for any regulator, I think really if you are to be effective, your key interest should be to ensure that, yes, you continue to support innovation, but you also manage issues around risks. Now, listening to, I think, the presentation shared here, there are quite a number of risks already that have been pointed to. Over and above the benefits around AI, there are all these risks around privacy, ethical use, the need for transparency, accountability, etc. I think what's incumbent upon us as ZICTA, us as government agencies, is to ensure that, yes, we continue to support innovation, and there are ways in which this can be done. I think there are sandboxes now at the central bank, SEC. Even within ZICTA, I think we're developing a framework that basically allows for flexibility and testing. But also, more importantly, I think we must not forget that we also need to manage these risks. And the only way to do this is to more or less develop a framework that directly responds to some of these risks that have been identified. I stop there, Lukonga, and perhaps we can respond to a few questions as they come. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm glad that you've addressed the next question I was going to ask you, because there are questions definitely around privacy and how you balance innovation and also regulation. Mapala, I'll move to you. There are questions as well in the chat just around where people can learn, how they can learn. And so AI education is one big piece of this. 50% of the respondents rated just education and upskilling as extremely important. So we now need to ask ourselves what models, what collaborative models between industry, academia, and maybe hubs and initiatives like Ubuntu AI could effectively bridge this skills gap.
Well, thank you, Mbukonga, and thanks to everyone who are asking very, very insightful questions within the chat as well. When we're looking at being able to solve the education problem, one of the things that comes into mind is how these industry sectors, whether it's academia, industry, and ecosystem players like Ubuntu AI, Bongo Hive, how do they then collaborate to solve these educational challenges? Well, then, for me, one thing comes to mind. Each of these players should be able to play a role. For industries, for example, industries should be looking to collaborate with AI hubs like Bongo Hive, Ubuntu AI, and academia to be able to provide opportunities for students to intern and solve real-world solutions within organizations, because there's no better learning than a practical learning. And industries have objectives, have goals, have got tasks at hand, and then we've got workforce in terms of the students being trained, both within hubs and within academia, that can benefit from internship programs, right? So I'm appealing to organizations out there for educational needs to be able to be open to more internship programs that support our students in these learning environments. Then what roles do people like Bongo Hive, what role do we play? People like Bongo Hive and Ubuntu AI, communities that are helping out with education. One of the things that we are looking to do a lot is to create joint upskill programs, right? Programs designed for current employees to be able to gain necessary AI skills to remain, competitive in the workforce, because we are looking at how skills in the workforce are also being outdated by AI. It's a real truth, right? So AI hubs are rightly positioned to help upskill people within organizations, and industries should be willing to collaborate with AI hubs to be able to have their employees trained and upskilled, and hence we can then move that particular low skill metric that we see in our report and increase that to maybe 80% from the lower 30s that we're currently seeing it at. And maybe lastly, for academia, the universities, they can now collaborate with industries and with organizations like AI, like our AI hub at Bongo Hive and Ubuntu AI, by beginning to ask us how they can reimagine their curriculums to be able to ensure that they are training students to solve real world problems. Because as people who are training SMEs, we are seeing the needs out there, as industries out there being able to solve real world problems that drive value to the people of Zambia, to the people around the world. They also understand the needs that AI could solve. And so by universities collaborating to understand how can we better reimagine curricula, we are going to see these three collaborative players begin to have better solutions at the end of the day. So I believe that's how we can do better to help education grow within AI. And maybe a last comment is there's a lot of online resources that can support that growth for individuals willing to learn and grow, from the normal YouTubes to Twitter accounts. But that's what I can put out there for now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mapalo. My last question from what I prepared is going to Pendo. And the reason this question is important because of this conversation around the role of ethics and what people are afraid of when it comes to AI, the fear of AI, but also the optimism that AI brings. So we did find out that almost 96% of respondents believe AI will significantly impact Zambia's economy. So people are definitely very optimistic about what AI can provide as benefits to the economy. And I'm very interested in Pendo's perspective because I think we had a conversation around the role of ethics, where people have a perception or have an approach that let's secure the AI before it goes rogue, but also that there's so much benefit if we build the right tools. And so the balancing act there is definitely complex. But what can we do what can we prioritize in Zambia to make sure that data privacy, education, ethics, infrastructure, public-private partnerships, that we are hopefully balancing all these priorities. But Pendo, what do you think we should strategically prioritize Zambia.
Thanks, Lukonga. That's a very interesting yet tough question. Because I think priority, when you speak about ethics, the ethics community when it comes to AI is very, it's a small community, but it's very powerful in how they approach in terms of bias, gender, from a gender perspective, from a cultural perspective. And there's also the aspect of modern day colonization, because if who has more GPUs has more power, right? But what's very important, I think, is as from a local perspective, I think it's very important that we do not stifle our advancement with overthinking it, because right now it's in a very early in a very early and infancy stage that we don't even know what lies ahead. So I like an analogy that Strive Masiyiwa put across and said, if we go back 100 years ago, right, and have Edison in a room with a light bulb, he probably didn't even have all these use cases that we've had for lighting, right? He probably just said, oh yeah, I can now see that I'm able to eat. But then someone asked him, what do you think this impact of this particular invention will be for the future? He probably didn't have all the use cases. And therefore, at that point, how do you protect things that are ahead that you haven't seen? I think that comes from a point of fear, and sometimes can stifle your way forward. But there has to be a right balance between ensuring that the ethics are preserved, security is ensured, and also our data is protected. And this comes with investing in education at all levels. So awareness around AI, how to utilize it, what information can be fed from a more general perspective, from a more general public awareness perspective. I think it's very important that this awareness is driven because how people interact with AI today is personal information is being fed into these systems. Company information is being fed into these systems, and these are public AI tools. And when you narrow it down, when I speak of investing in education, it also comes with developing local talent, which is very crucial. So when Zambians are the ones innovating and building in this space, they bring essential local context. So we understand our environment, and we also put our own interests forward. So our own interests will be preserving our cultural, moral perspectives, and our national security. But if you put the development in the hands of the Western world, they'll obviously put their interests forward. So I think it's very important that from a local perspective, while we're trying to protect and ensure that AI is safe, responsible, and we shouldn't drive that fear, but drive the progress from in terms of innovation. Like, let's build and also find the right balance between protecting the information, ensuring that our data is, ensuring that AI does not perpetuate existing biases, and also understands our local context for advancement. So when you look at education as well, before I move on to the next point, which is maybe just quickly on infrastructure, is there's a point I read somewhere about, there's a conversation that I joined, and it was how education is a very strategic and important investment for any country. And the returns are not immediate. So if we invest in education now, we're probably going to see the returns in the next 10, 20 years, right? But it's very important that we start now. If we don't start now, we'll still be pushing our way forward while our friends are making progress. So it's very important that this education, we invest in education, AI education, math, science, and change and transform our curriculum so that it's well equipped with the tools, with the skills that are needed for the future. Otherwise, we will not have the next leaders will not have a seat at the global table. Then finally, infrastructure, of course, Lukonga. We have the Data Protection Act, which says we need to localize our data. As long as our data is, as long as we do not have that infrastructure, we will not be able to build and scale and compete at global level. So I think it's important that the right investment in infrastructure is made if we're going to have laws that inhibit us from processing data, storing data elsewhere. We need to have it locally so that there's now a justification, and we do have the infrastructure to bring our data home. So I think it's very important and striking that balance to ensure that our data is protected. We need to have our infrastructure right to ensure that our culture and moral, ethical perspectives are also preserved in the AI systems. We need to ensure that we have the right talent, which is skilled and also able to build these technologies, taking into account local context and African context at large.
Thanks for a very detailed response. We have run out of time, and what we've done quite well is to include some of the questions that have been posted already in the chat. So there may be just one or two questions I'll add to this because I think they haven't been addressed. There's one particular question that relates to the methodology and maybe just the robustness of the survey itself. So are we confident that the survey was robust enough, considering that there were almost just 800 respondents? Maybe, Mapalo, you could respond to that.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. That's a very interesting question. We can look at the survey from this perspective as a sample size of the general populace. When we were actually being able to set the targets for our survey, there's a metric that we use as data analysts to be able to determine a proportion of a sample that can reflect the general population. And so we were able to look at that, and we were able to get an index that told us that if we're able to get our threshold above 700, it will be a well-represented sample based off industry practices. So in answering, is it something that can definitely give us confidence to give insights from? That's 100% yes. It does pass the check, right? It passes the standard sample check. However, do we wish we had more respondents? The question again, the answer then would be yes again, right? But then it also happens to be something that, one, we have to look at how it was also, we used online to be able to get some of this data. And so it had to do with how many people were able to reach in a given particular time. And so obviously we're looking how we can obviously grow the numbers with time. So to just summarize what I've said, it definitely passes the sample size check to represent the population of 19 million Zambians. So that definitely does meet that criteria. However, with an increased number of people, that would be a more refreshing number to have for future surveys of this form. I hope that provides some form of comfort and also feedback on that question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Just had a power outage here. So if I'm too dark, please note that. When we note the current open source movement and the direction that models are now taking, particularly in the past 3 months from the time DeepSeek came out, and even before that with Meta's models, which were open source, we are seeing that, and this is referring to a question that was asked, we are seeing that from a model perspective, foundational models and such, there's been a push towards reducing the cost and accessibility. I'm sure a lot more people are interested in how impactful that will be on Zambia and our ability to also leverage these tools, because more of them are becoming open source. Maybe Pendo, you can respond to that one.
Yes, I think it was a very pivotal moment when DeepSeek released their model. And I say this, it wasn't that it was out of the world. OpenAI, ChatGPT did an already exceptional job, Copilot as well. But what was particularly interesting is their resourcefulness, of course, right? They had constraints. They didn't have the number of GPUs that the American or the Western companies had. So maybe to answer the question is that it becomes much more in terms of compute. You don't have to build from scratch. You can leverage on the already exist. Like you can leverage on in terms of you can plug in from the DeepSeek has a more. I think they're free. I haven't tested their APIs from an enterprise perspective, but it gives more accessibility and democratizes the AI from both the user end and also the developer end. because I think OpenAI came into the market at a premium cost. So I think if you look at it from an African perspective, the cost of credits are quite high because they're dollar-based. So if you look at it from a Zambian perspective, only a few can afford, and these are businesses, enterprises, individuals you can afford, but as you scale, it becomes more of a cost challenge. So I think with DeepSeek coming into the space, it now gives more access to small businesses, startups as well, to leverage on that technology to scale and grow and compete almost at the same level. So I think, yeah, it's quite interesting, and looking forward to how this unfolds.
Thank you. That's all for now. I think we've answered a number of questions. It's a good time to let people know how they can download the report itself. The teams have worked very hard to prepare this, so I hope it does help a lot more people make the right decisions and also just understand where Zambia is and what the potential is. So we'll share the link in the chat just now. It's also available on all our platforms, and our partners as well will share it. But for now, thank you so much, Bernard and Pendo and Mapalo, for an insightful panel discussion. And I will now hand it over to Muyanje.
Thank you so much for that, Lukonga, and our gracious panelists. That was a very, very insightful and invigorating discussion. I was literally on the edge of my seat here listening to you guys, and the questions in the chat just reflect everything that we're thinking, and there's so many more questions that are there to go. But in the interest of time, we're going to end our webinar here. Just want to go over a little bit of what went down in the report. We discussed the opportunities that everybody, all the respondents saw in Zambia, and the different challenges that people are facing in implementing AI or with the dawn of AI. And lastly, just what our next discussion and the next place is. And I think that concludes our webinar. I just want to say thank you once again to our panelists, to everybody who has spoken, who has joined our webinar. We thank you so much. Before we conclude this webinar, we're going to post the link to download the report so that everybody has a chance to read in details and get in touch with us for further clarifications. Yes. Yes, the report has been added in the comment section or in the messages. So just once again, thank you to everybody who joined the webinar. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.